Hello everyone, my name is Sahil and I welcome you all at Unacademy. So guys, in the today's session, we are going to discuss a very important aspect of Chinese foreign policy, that is Chinese wolf warrior diplomacy. And is it the end of wolf warrior diplomacy of China? Due to which there has been a lot of confrontations between India and China in the last 2 to 3 years, and why China resorts to wolf warrior diplomacy, whether it has helped China or not. So guys, let's start all these particular things and why this topic is particularly important for our examination, because in our GS paper number 2 international relation, the neighborhood foreign policy aspects of neighbors have been given very clearly. So let's start with this particular video. Now, here guys, first of all, let's understand the context that why this particular issue has now come in the news. So guys, we see this particular thing that recently China has made certain reshuffles in their foreign ministry, and we see this thing that earlier foreign minister Wang Yi, who has been foreign minister of China from last 9 years, he has been replaced with Qin Gang. So now we see that new foreign minister Qin Gang has been brought in China. Now guys, understand this thing. Wang Yi, the earlier foreign minister, was the one under whose leadership we find this particular thing that Galwan Valley clashes emerged between India and China. Then there are other many confrontations emerged between India and China, particularly on the line of actual control. Now, guys, one more important change has taken place here. We find this particular thing that Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian has also been transferred to the Department of Boundary and Ocean Affairs. Now, so the Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian and Wang Yi, the earlier foreign minister, they had resorted to wolf warrior diplomacy. So what is this wolf warrior diplomacy? So it is a particular form of diplomacy in which China has become more confrontational. Chinese diplomats, they have lost all the subtleties in foreign policy, in diplomatic negotiations that happens. So China has become more crude. China is directly alleging the other countries that they have ulterior designs against China. This is wolf warrior diplomacy. Guys, actually what has happened, there was a movie by the name of Wolf Warrior where Chinese nationalist heroes were shown that how they were fighting against the Western interest. So China is portraying that nationalism in a very crude and very harsh manner. So this is a flavor of Wolf Warrior diplomacy. Now guys, in wolf warrior diplomacy, number one, it entails extending China's ideology beyond China in neighborhood as well as towards other regions. It is the way of countering the West. Now guys, earlier China was driven by the ideology of hide your capabilities and bide your time. China did not use to pick fights, but here what has happened, China is outrightly challenging. This is wolf warrior diplomacy. Moreover, here we see this thing that China is outrightly putting forward their viewpoint against the West. It is defending themselves against the Western interference. Let's take certain examples where China has resorted to this wolf warrior diplomacy. So guys, the first example we can see when US Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. Now guys, when we talk about the Taiwan, for Taiwan, China maintains one China principle. China says that Taiwan is not a sovereign independent nation. Rather, Taiwan is the part of mainland China, and one day Taiwan will be made as the part of China. Now, Taiwan, however, on other hand, says that no, they are a sovereign nation, and therefore China has made this thing very clear that if any country will maintain diplomatic relations with Taiwan, then they cannot maintain their individual independent relations with China. Now, when we talk about USA has always maintained a strategic ambiguity on Taiwan. Neither they say that yes, Taiwan is completely sovereign independent, nor they recognize completely the China's viewpoint. But over the past few years, we have seen that USA has restrained in cultivating independent relation with Taiwan. But what happened few days back? Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of USA, visited Taiwan, and China said that you have violated our one China principle, and outrightly China sent its fighter aircrafts in the air defense zone of Taiwan. Directly confrontational warnings were given by China to Taiwan, and not only to Taiwan, even to the USA. Direct confrontational warnings were given. So this is an example of wolf warrior diplomacy. Then guys, we have seen this thing that last year Chinese Coast Guard ships, they actually sank a Vietnamese trawlers near the Paracel Islands in the South China Sea. And basically this such kind of a confrontational way, this is an example of wolf warrior diplomacy. Moreover, we have also seen that China recently named 80 islands, reefs, seamounts, shoals, okay, and ridges in the South China Sea. And in fact, entire South China Sea, China has claimed that they have the sovereignty on it. So we see this thing that here, so Paracel Island, which we discussed, it is here. So guys, these are some of the important locations which we need to see here, because questions on such kind of lines also come in examination. So let's see some of the important locations here. So guys, here we can see that we have Andaman Sea, then we have Gulf of Thailand. Okay, so moving from the side of west to east, we have Andaman Sea, then we have Gulf of Thailand. Now here guys, there is this 9 dash line. This region is 9 dash line, and the island that I was talking, Paracel Islands, they are here. Okay, Scarborough Shoal is there, then Spratly Islands are there, and China claims this entire region of South China Sea as their own. And because of that, because of this particular claim, China often has disputes with the other countries who are bounding the South China Sea, because they say South China Sea belong to them also as the part of their EEZ. Okay, now the countries which border South China Sea, let's see their names also, because such questions have been asked in exam. So we have Brunei, Cambodia, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Taiwan, Thailand, and Vietnam. Okay, now moving on. So these are some examples where China has portrayed their wolf warrior diplomacy. Apart from that, we have other examples also in this particular capacity. For example, guys, here we see this thing that Li Jianzhao, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, what he did, he posted a morphed photograph on Australia and said that Australian troops have killed the prisoners of war and civilians, and they have carried the throat slitting. So there was no claims to that particular message, but they still spread it, and when it was fact checked, they even did not apologized for such a kind of a thing. So they have become very crude, they have become very outspoken, they have become very brash in their diplomacy. This is what we have discussed so many times as wolf warrior diplomacy. Okay, now question comes that why China is resorting to such different or wolf warrior type of diplomacy. Let's discuss all these reasons one by one, because this is very important for our examination. But before moving on, guys, I would like to tell you about Unacademy UPSC CSE GS subscriptions. So why, first of all, you should join Unacademy, because here you get widest choice of educators, flexibility to change the courses, unlimited view on lectures, dedicated doubt solving sessions, printed notes, end-to-end preparation, mentorship, daily answer writing sessions. And if you want to enroll in Unacademy, you can avail Unacademy's Plus as well as Iconic subscription. You can use the code Sahil29 to immediately avail 10% discount. You can enroll in the courses, share subscriptions, 12 month, 18 month, 24 month. You can learn at your own pace. And Unacademy has come with UPSC Iconic Week offer, where if you avail 18-month subscription, 18-month Iconic subscription, you get complimentary optional subscription completely free of cost. So you get a 10% discount, and apart from that, you also get an optional subscription. Fine, so you can avail the offer. It is the best time. You can use the code Sahil29 for that. And now Unacademy has also started with expedition batch, which is going to be an English batch for 2024, and the batch has started from January 19. You can enroll in the batch. Okay, and all these courses, best thing is that are also available at 0% EMI, so you can give a call at this number and my team will guide you with the bare minimum formalities. Now coming back, the question that why China resorts to such wolf warrior diplomacy, there are many reasons. Now number one, guys, we have seen this particular thing that post 2010 Chinese economy has surpassed the Japanese economy. And because of that particular thing, what has happened, Chinese have become more confident. They have become more confident, and therefore they are imposing themselves on the world stage. Guys, understand this thing that we found this thing that in 1990s, post 1990s, fine, just a minute, just I want to guys tell you one very important dimension here. Fine, now see this thing. We see that in 1978, China came with their open door policy, which was the kind of a Chinese LPG reforms. And in the start, China claimed the tagline of hide your capabilities, hide your capabilities and bide your time. Hide your capabilities and bide your time. Don't show to the world that what capabilities you have acquired. However, by the time 1990s came, entire world came to know about the Chinese capabilities. Now they came to know about the Chinese capabilities, Chinese rise. So post 1990, China changed their tagline and they said that China is all about peaceful rise. China is all about peaceful rise. Yes, we are rising, but our rise is peaceful. We don't want to bother anyone. But we see this thing that post 2010, when China overtook Japan, and particularly once Xi Jinping came on the national scale, okay, we have seen that China is driven by arrival factor. China is driven by arrival factor. China now believes that their time has come. And now they are suitable contenders to become the global superpower. They are contenders to become hegemon. So because of this particular thing, now China is imposing itself outrightly. So this has happened post 2010. So this is something that has happened. Moreover, guys, understand this particular thing, that today China has observed this thing that Western media is portraying China negatively. At many occasions they have seen this particular thing. For example, guys, China's image suffered a lot during the time of COVID-19. It was seen, Western media portrayed that thing, that deliberately China did not share the information of human to human transmission of COVID-19. Because of that thing, often we find that Donald Trump outrightly said COVID-19 is a Chinese virus. So because of this particular thing, China says that there is ideological differentiation in Western media, there are racist tinges. Fine. So therefore, China has now become more outspoken in this particular capacity. Okay, so guys, we see this thing. Then after that, guys, we also see that Xi Jinping, he seems to be more of an authoritarian. So Xi Jinping wants to consolidate his power. Xi Jinping wants to leave a kind of a everlasting imprint on Chinese history. So therefore, Xi Jinping under his regime is deliberately promoting wolf warrior diplomacy, so that the time of China under Xi Jinping can be shown as distinctly fine what was happened into the times of the earlier leaders. Then outrightly there is a Detroiting US-China relationship which has started under President Donald Trump. And because of that particular thing also, China doesn't has any regard for the present global order which is dominated by USA. Now, how China is using this wolf warrior diplomacy against India, what China has done. Let's understand these some examples also. First of all, guys, see this thing. In order to impose itself against the India, China has involved in increasing its presence in Indian Ocean. Now, when we talk about Indian Ocean, guys, Indian Ocean has actively been pursued by India as a chief part of their foreign policy. But you see this thing. Now, China is developing its naval capabilities, particularly in Indian Ocean, and it is collaborating with the countries here. For example, in 2017, China established its first offshore military base in Djibouti. Fine. This is something we can see that here directly China is trying to counter India. Secondly, guys, we see this thing that China is independently pursuing its foreign policy, its leadership role in Indian Ocean without involving India. For example, recently China International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDCA, they held a meeting of China Indian Ocean Region Forum. In this meeting, 19 countries were invited, but India was not invited, when India always happened to be a strategic player in Indian Ocean. So this is again an example that the subtlety of diplomacy, cooperation, idealism has been lost, and wolf warrior diplomacy has came in its place. Then we see this particular thing, that outrightly confrontations with India are being picked up, and particularly they have increased a lot in past around 4 to 5 years. Let's take some example. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is being constructed by China for Pakistan, and it passes from Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Now Pakistan occupied Kashmir belongs to India. It is illegally captured by Pakistan. Okay, so from that territory, China-Pakistan economic corridor is passing. So outrightly, China is challenging India's sovereign control on the region. Then we also see this thing, that Doklam dispute of 2017, then Galwan Valley clashes of 2020, and recent clashes in Tawang that has happened. It shows that how China has switched to wolf warrior diplomacy. Moreover, guys, we see this particular thing, that by Belt and Road Initiative, Maritime Silk Road, by string of pearls theory, what China is doing, China is constructing strategic infrastructure around India in order to contain India for the future times. Okay. Then guys, we also see this particular thing, that though China is resorting to wolf warrior diplomacy, but now a question comes, that is China moving away from this wolf warrior diplomacy? Has it outlived its utility? Because we have seen that the foreign minister, who was known for his wolf warrior diplomacy tactics, he has been changed. Spokesperson also, who has been changed. So we need to understand this spectrum also. Now guys, understand that today we see Chinese society is becoming more diverse. Chinese society is getting exposed with the Western liberal ideas, Western liberal thoughts. Now nationalism, masculinity, masculine nationalism that was always the trait of China, it is now changing. Okay, and the new age diplomats that are coming, their outlook is more inclined towards liberalism. So we find this thing, that all Chinese diplomats, they are not wolf warriors as per their default ideology when it is concerned. Moreover, guys, understand this thing, that as we talk about wolf warrior diplomacy of China, it has hurt China also, and therefore China might reconsider it. For example, we see this particular thing, that Australia had called for independent probe into the coronavirus origin. Okay, we have seen this thing, that the Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson outrightly made allegation on Australia, and because of that, Australia-China relations got impacted a lot. And we find today Australia is openly supporting India and USA under the quadrilateral security dialogue. Under AUKUS, Australia is openly going with the US and UK. Now obviously USA is against China. So China has faced a kind of a losses in this particular direction. Moreover, Chinese soft power, Chinese culture, by which they attracted so many of tourists, so many of the investment, it has also got impacted. China is getting isolated from the entire world. So therefore, wolf warrior diplomacy has impacted, has negatively played a role here. Okay, so this is something, guys, that had happened. So now the political analysts are saying this particular thing, that China is moving beyond this wolf warrior diplomacy. But now, guys, as the time will pass, we will be able to better tell that whether really that particular kind of a change has happened, or is it just a kind of a transition. So the time is going to tell. Now, what is way ahead in this particular direction? So guys, way forward could be like this, that so today China needs to understand this particular thing, that there is, see, China-US relation is not a zero-sum game. Okay, zero-sum game means that the power for one will come at the cost of the power for other. Okay, guys, understand this thing. Zero-sum game is based on ideology, that someone's gain can only happen when somebody's else loss will be there. If USA will be powerful, China will never gain the power. So this is zero-sum game, and because of that, they are always confronting with each other. They need to understand that their relation is not a zero-sum game. World is wide enough to contain both China and US. They can develop and they can prosper at the same time. So keeping this thing in mind, wolf warrior diplomacy is not something which is going to serve the Chinese purpose. China need to look beyond that thing and need to look for cooperation and accommodation. And when India is concerned, number one, guys, India, in order to contain China, as China has shown a lot of offensive recently, number one, India, in order to contain China, need to strengthen relation with the US and Western allies who have conflict with China. For example, India has become partner under quadrilateral security dialogue, Indo-Pacific Economic Forum. So India need to elaborate relations on that front. India need to increase cooperation with the neighbors. For example, India is already taking up the neighborhood first policy. So as India will increase cooperation with the neighbors, we can see this thing, that China will then not be able to use neighbors of India against India. Then with the China, we need to pursue the soft power diplomacy. Cultural significance, cultural aspects of diplomacy can be used. So that is all guys about this particular topic, and I hope that you have got a fresh perspective on this entire issue. So that is all for today. And guys, if you have liked, please do hit the like button and please do subscribe to the channel. And please do leave your valuable comments. Thank you so much.